Hey y'all, Pi here, and we are back in Our Life Beginnings and Always, and I suspect that this will be the very last episode. My heart is not ready. But we are going to push through my personal feelings because there are many more games that I must play. Plus, I am gonna come back to this one and do another playthrough after I've taken at least 2 months to do something else. But anyway, previously everybody was sharing all of their new life paths, and we were thinking about it, and I'm gonna say it was bittersweet. You turned your head to the side, wistful, not wanting to spoil everything with your troubles. Or spoil the evening with your troubles, rather. You were glad that everyone was succeeding, but the idea of splitting up gave you a twinge of regret. These people had been key pillars in your life. Days ahead without them, no matter how bright and shiny, felt a little empty, like a theme park after closing time. But you focused your mind on the sweet part. Gotta focus on the good times. Don't let the bad times bring you down. New adventures were still ahead, and you can encourage that optimism. Cove brought some attention to himself, the clearing of his throat, and a small interjection. I'm gonna stretch my legs while we're waiting for the food and everything.
Oh? Sure.
Sure thing, bud. With a tiny smile, he nodded at his dad, but the lightness to his expression faded when he moved to face you. Cove? Wanna come? He was attempting to be subtle, but there was very obviously something on his mind, something he wanted to talk to you about alone. Sips tea. You watched him with concern as you rose from your seat. Yeah, I'll go. Take care. With those parting words, the two of you walked out about the place. He was trying to get as far away from everyone else as possible without actually exiting the building. What did you need to say? He hadn't admitted that was what this was about, but he didn't need to. Cove started pulling on the hem of his shirt. He turned his head back to face you, but it was an awkward movement. Well, I wanted to talk to you one-on-one about all this. You know, my work, moving. That's what I mean when we talked before dinner. I mean, it was coming before, but now it's pretty much here. Yeah, it's exciting. Cove stopped picking at his shirt, and he seemed to respond well to that response. He was relieved you weren't upset about it. We are happy for our boy. Always be supportive, SO. I'm glad you think so. But then he looked down and his brows furrowed. You saw his hand shift away from his clothes to instead rub at his arm. Are you looking forward to it? I am. Well, I'm trying to be. He ducked his head further, and you saw his face start to redden. But it's scary. What if I mess everything up for me? For us? You could never ruin what we have. He said nothing, but let his eyes meet yours again. Cove then turned his head away and wrapped his arms around himself. You felt a sudden chill that definitely wasn't caused by the air conditioner. I promise I'm not gonna keep asking this forever, but so much of our lives has been this place with these people. It seems like all of this is about to change. So, are you really sure you want me? Yes! You remembered that night of the Orca fundraiser when you admitted you loved Cove, and that you wanted to be with him always. He seemed so confident about it then, but now that you were on the brink. His words came out hesitantly. He didn't want to ask this. He didn't want to know. I'm not just talking about today, but forever. Always. If things change later, right now, do you feel we can make it? Or do you think we can't last? That one day we'll have to move on? I'm going to give Joy a level of confidence that I have never fucking had. And I'm gonna say, you kept calm. You understood his concern. It was definitely hard to imagine what would happen. However, you didn't let yourself get upset. I want it to be forever. You thought about the future and how unsure it was. You couldn't know what was to come. However, there was one thing you did know, and that was how much you cared about him. Cove laughed with a delicate smile on his face. Okay, you win. I wanted to prepare myself for the horrifying unknown, but you're kind of giving me no choice but to be optimistic here. Good! His eyes sparkled with mischief. Strong armor. You're welcome. Cove rolled his eyes and tried not to smile. Thanks for listening to me, Joy. It helped. He felt pleased that his anxiety had eased after talking it out. I think it's time to rejoin the party. Do you feel like heading back?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot what we were doing here. That'd probably be good. With matching smiles, you both reclaimed your seats at the table. Both of you felt lighter, and it showed. You seem happy. What was that? Yeah, it looked like you were having quite the conversation over there. It's neighbor stuff, sorry. I used to be your neighbor. Yeah, waved off their questions, and you didn't offer any explanations. They still seemed curious, but caught that Cove wanted it to stay between the two of you and let it drop. Things relaxed, and you took a sip of your drink. Lee idly tapped the table and got your attention. I'm so excited to try this place. I haven't been here in a long time. I hope it's as good as I remember. All the restaurants in the area are pretty top-notch in my humble opinion. We'll see. It was a challenge issued. Liz carried herself like some sort of professional food critic, and Mom snorted. Tough crowd, geez, Liz. Ma giggled and chimed in as well, much to Liz's embarrassment. That's right, Lizzie G's. Oh, geez, Louise. Let's tease her, geez. Liz put a hand over her eyes in mock offense.
Rude.
I hardly say geez anymore. Cove smirked and turned to your sister. You leaned forward in your seat. Huh, geez. Everyone burst out laughing, besides Liz, of course. She smirked. No one could ever accuse your family of being no fun. Night fell soon after everyone finished their meals, and before you knew it, you were standing in the parking lot saying your goodbyes and packing up the cars to go home. After the last of the chores were done, your family spent some time together. The rest of the night felt like it was going by in a blink of an eye, and somehow the time came to retire to your room to sleep. You pulled your covers up under your chin and settled down for the night, getting warm and cozy. As your head sank into your pillow and you closed your eyes, your mind drifted back to everything that had happened that day. You could see it all now, behind your eyelids, as though you were experiencing it all over again. And then the image of Cove popped into your head and you smiled softly to yourself. You texted him to come over. Taking your phone from your bedside table, you lay on your back and held it above your face, typing out a message to Cove. Do you want to come over? You chewed on the end of your fingers, you watched the screen, waiting for any sign that he was typing back. If you were being fair, it was a pretty odd time to have a meet-up, but even so, you hoped he would. I mean, it's Cove. Boy does not understand that a window is not a door. Your heart leapt as your phone finally buzzed, and you stared at his answer on your screen. Okay. A breath of laughter escaped you as you messaged him back. He hadn't even asked why. You sent him a quick thanks back and put your phone away before sitting up in bed, leaning back against your pillows and waiting for him to come over. The stillness of the night came very obvious to you, and you started to hear the soft noises your house made when you were all asleep much more clearly. Each second seemed to drag on and on. You just wanted Cove to be here already. Finally, you heard those familiar sounds coming from outside, a sort of scratching and then shuffling. Next came a tap on the window. You hopped out of your seat with almost too much energy and rushed to let Cove in. When you arrived, you could see Cove was smiling in at you from the other side in the dark. You slid the window up and stepped back, giving him space to climb through and get down from the ledge. That does not look like the type of window that slides up. It looks like it opens. Anyway, He was in an amusing mismatch of pajamas and sneakers, and Cove chuckled when he saw you looking at his ensemble. Once safely inside, he straightened up and dusted himself off before looking at you expectantly.
Hey.
What can I do for you? We're going for it. You pulled him in for a kiss. Clutching the front of his shirt, you gently pulled him towards you and met his lips with your own. He kissed you back softly before pulling back too quickly, looking a little flustered. Was that the whole reason? Yeah, I just wanted a kiss. Go back. He hesitated before whispering the next part embarrassedly. To kiss me? Is that a bad reason? No, it's not. The bed sank under Cove's weight as he sat down, his eyes firmly fixed on the ground. His hands shook where he had held them in his lap. He was nervous. You sat beside him contentedly, waiting for him to speak first. I'll stay as long as you want me to. Forever. Really? Yeah, really. How long do you want to stay?
Well...
To be honest, there aren't a lot of situations where leaving you is ever what I want to do. Aww. I guess only when I annoy you and you need your space. You chuckled softly, doubting that would happen anytime soon. Okay, you don't have to go anywhere. His face lit up as he settled in even more. It won't have been the first time I've slept in your room. You snickered, feeling pleased with your decision to do this. Okay, but there's no way I'm letting you take the floor this time. Here we go again. You rolled your eyes and let out a soft laugh, which Cove returned as he rubbed at the back of his neck. I don't want to push him too hard, because I know exactly how anxiety-inducing this can be. But I also want cuddles! I am conflicted! We're just gonna do it, we're gonna plow straight through. I want to share. Can you try to stay? His eyebrows dipped. He was growing visibly nervous. It was to be expected. But after what happened last time, you'd been waiting for another chance. You hoped he felt the same, and it seemed he did.
Yeah.
This time we can share. Aww. You'll really stay? You won't leave to be on the floor? He nodded. Holding back your delight, you tried not to grin at his sudden resolve. We're gonna share the bed. You could hear the tremble in Cove's voice as he held his hands together to keep them from shaking. He let out a breath and shook his hands in front of him, mentally preparing himself. It's gonna be alright. We're just cuddling, Cove. Calm down. His mouth set into a grim line and he balled his hands into fists at his side, determined. You were glad he was making the effort. It was an important step in your relationship, and he seemed to understand that. It only took a couple of moments longer before he turned to you, attempting a weak smile. Ready? What are we ready for? We're just sleeping. I'm definitely ready. Let's get cozy. He took another deep breath and you slipped under the covers, making room for him to get in after you. Laying as straight as a steel rod, Cove tensed up beside you, so still he was barely breathing at all. Calm down. You rested on your side and faced him, your elbows pinched in the middle as you watched him. He looked back at you deeply. Do you need more time? I can leave until you're more set up here. No, please don't go. I just want you to stay with me. Aww. Ever so slowly, he began to relax, his fingers tentatively brushing up and down your arm. His eyes shut, lashes fanning out over the top of his cheeks, and you still half expected him to run away like last time. Baby boy's growing up. I'm so proud. But he didn't. He stayed right where he was.
Don't worry about it.
You don't have to worry about me. Doing stuff like this isn't a problem. It's a process. Aww. You nodded in understanding, even though he couldn't see it, giving him time to let his nerves settle. After fluffing up your pillow and getting yourself comfy, you stayed quiet. Eventually, his shoulders became less rigid. When his eyes opened, he smiled and turned his head towards you. Thank you for waiting, again, as always. Aww. He laughed shyly, his soft eyes meeting yours through the dim light.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? I am now that you are. He let out a deep breath, relief written on his face. Yeah, I am. He shuffled closer, an inch at a time, before nuzzling into your neck and wrapping his arms around your side. Aww. Cuddles! You wrapped your arms around him. Your fingers gently brushed up and down his back as you held him close. The room grew quiet around you. The only sounds to be heard were the faraway crash of ocean waves and your breath mingling in the small space between you. Cove's heart was pounding, the thump of it rumbling through you as he spoke again softly.
That's...
You know, I'm not scared of you, right? It's just so many other things that scare me. I'm afraid of what-if hypotheticals that aren't actually real, but I think about anyway, and of nebulous concepts of what things mean that I can barely explain even to myself. I'm scared of my own feelings and how much I feel them. Ooh, baby. And I'm afraid, because tomorrow things will be different between us, but I'll be alone again. Aww. He held onto you tighter, his breath stuttering ever so slightly. It's normal right now to see you during the day and part ways at night. Except for special occasions. Honestly, we might as well just move in together since the boy's just gonna crawl into my window every night anyway. A little laugh escaped him before his tone became serious once more. It's easier to stay where I am than it is to make myself move, to not take a risk, and to not know what I might be missing, but... He hesitated, and you reached up to brush a few strands of hair from his face gently, his eyes slowly fixing on yours. When did doing the easy thing get so hard? When it comes to you, I don't know how to stay still. I want to keep taking steps forward. Aww. Honestly, when I see your face or even imagine it, I want to start sprinting. Aww. But when I try, I hit a wall. Aww. It's just like I physically can't do it on one side of my mind. There's something blocking me. And then on the other side, I absolutely can't stop myself from doing it. It never ends well.
I'm always like this.
I hate it. It's the most frustrating thing. Why do I do it every time? I am annoyed with the way I am, so I have no idea how you stand it. I'm sorry I act so split when it comes to, romantic things. I do not want you to think that you're rushing me when I know I'm giving mixed signals. And I don't want to miss out on being happy by being like this, but sometimes I still can't help it. So, basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad you've never given up on me. It means a lot. It means everything to me. You've been there whenever I've really needed it. His eyes glossed over a little as he squeezed you closer to him and smiled, his heart rate finally relaxing to a normal rhythm. Aww.
Good night.
Good night, Joy. Good night. He leaned forward and kissed you tenderly, his hand gently moving to cradle the back of your head.
I love you.
I love you too. You were still smiling as you snuggled into him, getting as close as you could. Cocooned in his warmth, you easily grew comfortable next to him, feeling him ease into you as well. Before long, your eyes were growing heavy, and you drifted off in a restful sleep, side by side. The next morning, you woke up slowly from a comfortable dream. With a small stretch, you opened your eyes fully to the sun shining in through the window. Shuffling on your side, you noticed Cove still beside you in the bed, sleeping soundly. Aww. His arms continued to be draped around you loosely as he snoozed. You must have fallen asleep that way. Aww. You smiled, remembering the prior night. It had been nice to spend the night together, getting to be with him in a whole different way. You could definitely get used to it. Yes, nighttime snuggles are the best snuggles. That is the hill I'm gonna die on. You kissed his forehead softly. Being careful not to wake him, you bent over and pressed your lips against his skin. He stirred a little in response, a small, sleepy smile appearing in his face. Aww. His eyes fluttered open softly before widening in surprise at the sight of you. As his memories caught up with him, he gave you a bashful smile. Morning. Good morning. He snuggled against him and smiled softly, making the most of your time together while he nuzzled your hair with his cheek. Aww. His breath rested on your skin as he sighed happily, and you tightened your arms around him. Cove. When you tilted your head to meet his eyes, he grinned at you, gently brushed the tip of his nose against yours.
I guess
we should get up. You sounded reluctant, and if you were being honest with yourself, you were too. It would have been nice to have more time together, just relaxing and hanging out. 5 more minutes. Cove smirked and gave you an affectionate look. We have to. My mom is coming today, remember? I have to start getting ready. You grumbled in reply, but relented nonetheless. Cove shook his head at you with a small smile. You both pulled yourselves up and started shuffling around the room. Cove stretched his long limbs out and yawned before ruffling his fingers through his green hair. You watched him fondly until your eyes met, and he looked away quickly, hiding a blush. Aww. So, that was fun. I can't believe I slept here the whole night. You know, Cove, me too. Yeah, me either. I'm glad you did, though.
Me too.
Aww. Cove slipped his glasses back on as he spoke those words. With a last shared smile, the two of you headed out of your room and down the stairs, laughing and chatting casually about your plans for the day. It was like he had lived there the whole time, or as if waking up together were as regular an occurrence as anything. Cove snuck his hand into yours, giving it a soft squeeze and making you feel all warm. As you hit the foot of the stairs, you froze, finding 4 different pairs of eyes staring over at the two of you in various states of amusement and shock. Your family was already up. Whoa, wait, we just walked down? What, you idiots! Oh my lord! No, this was a bad idea! You don't... If you bring the boy through the window, you send him back out through the window. Oh no. Oh no. It took a moment for anyone to speak, but soon enough a chorus of greetings drifted over. You scanned the place to find your moms, Liz and Lee, all together around the kitchen and living room. Hi, good morning. I got here, earlier. Oh yeah, I bet you did. Liz snorted with undisguised laughter, making Lee giggle along with her. I've been out here for quite a while. I never saw you come through. Well. A blush spread across Cove's cheeks, the pink tinge settling on the tip of his nose. La 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 la. You're also still in your pajamas. You don't usually rock around town during the day in those, do you? Mom let out a little laugh of her own, and you gave her a look, which she responded by clamping her mouth shut. Cove looked down at his outfit, and his shoulders slumped in defeat as he hung his head to hide his very red face. You know, I always guessed you had been sneaking in, Cove, but could never quite prove it. Mom nodded in agreement, nudging Ma's shoulder playfully as she headed over to stand beside her. That's something I wouldn't have bet against. Liz tutted at the two of them and shook her head. You've definitely gotten too comfortable with their sneaky revelry.
Very nice.
You still did good. You never got caught before you turned 18. We cleared the bar. Lee smiled from where she sat at the kitchen table, waving a dismissive hand in the air. Surely you can't be punished too hard for it now. I'm not so sure about that. Joy still lives at home, and I very much doubt that this is the first time they have let Cove in like this. Ma crossed her arms over her chest, giving both you and Cove a serious look.
No.
We may have to have retroactive punishments for all of that.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, it's not Joy's fault. It was my fault, not Cove's. I'm the one who asked him to come over. I practically didn't even give him a choice. That's not true. At that moment, your moms both burst out laughing, receiving amused looks from Liz and Lee, while you and Cove simply stood there, dumbstruck.
Don't worry about it.
We're merciful, don't worry. That's true. You did indeed get away with it, and we're not going to make the little bit of summer you have left miserable over bedtime rule breaking now. Besides, you're in good company. We're almost certain Lizzie spent many nights sneaking the old home phone into her room and staying up till dawn. At least you were in your own rooms.
Rude.
Excuse me, that's conjecture. They exchanged smiles before Ma turned to you again with a firmer expression.
Goodness.
They were in their rooms, but I do worry about you coming in that way, Cove. It's dangerous. Especially because he's likely quite distracted and excited by thoughts of reuniting with Joy while climbing around in the dark. Mom joked, and they all burst out laughing once more, keeping Cove fully embarrassed. Poor boy. This poor boy. Cove leaned in closer to you and whispered quietly, a look of guilt settling over his features. I'm sorry, Joy. Forget it. My family are the ones going at it. A knock at the door caught your attention. You followed several steps behind Mom as she went to answer it. Mr. Holden and Kyra were standing together. Oh no! Morning.
Hello.
Hi there. Surprised at the sight, Mom paused a moment, and then she pulled Kyra into a hug. Meanwhile, Cove went through a process. Shock and excitement over her arrival rolled right into the awkward realization that he had missed her showing up at his house by being at yours. Whoops! It's been too long. I know, time's been flying. Kyra's gaze slid over to you and then to Cove. Her eyes sparkled with mischief and her mouth curled into a smirk.
Cove.
And it's so good to see my son finally. Hello to you, Joy. Mom knows what's up now. Continuing on his ride of emotions, Cove's face slowly reddened. He couldn't quite meet anyone's eyes, so he kept looking at his own feet.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mom. I'm sorry too. You blurted out the words out so fast that Kyra started laughing. You could feel everyone's gaze on you, and your face started burning.
It's alright.
You're very chill about this. Like, if my parents had found out that I was sneaking a boy in for years through the window, they'd have killed me. That would have been it. You never would have heard from me again. Kyra gave his back a few reassuring pats, but Ko's face seemed to get even redder. She grinned. My not-so-little mister is spreading his wings. I can't complain about that. Mom immediately brought a hand to her face to hide her mouth, but a giggle still escaped. People looked at her confused, and then she laughed again, louder.
Huh.
It's just a really fitting phrase, considering Cove's current attire. She pointed at the feathery wing-like decal around the collar of Cove's pajama shirt. Oh! Everyone turned their attention to Cove. He even looked down at his own clothes over the realization. That's so true. I didn't even notice. All the parents burst into continued laughter. Cove was clearly not as amused. You flashed him a smile, and he visibly perked up. It's really nice to be back. Enough of standing around out there. Come on in. Mom moved aside to usher the group in and guided them to the living room. Before anyone could get settled in, Mom spoke up. You're all welcome to stay for breakfast. We still have some great spices and stuff from the farmer's market.
Of course.
Yes, we'd be thrilled to host you. There were eager nods from Mr. Holden and Kyra, but Cove looked around the room filled with familiar faces before speaking up. Maybe, instead of staying here, why don't we go to the beach? A scenic picnic, eh? Mr. Holden crossed his arms and contemplated that idea happily. Excited, Kyra clapped her hands together.
Yeah.
Oh, we could really make a day out of it. Might as well enjoy the ocean while we can. That sounds lovely, Cove. Everyone else put in their own agreement with Cove's suggestion. Before long, both families dispersed, getting everything ready. Sandwiches had to be made, water, sunscreen, towels, and more needed to be gathered and packed. Plus, you and Cove both took some time to get dressed for the day. An hour later, both your family and Cove's were walking down the old path to the beach. The morning was already turning into a bright and beautiful day. You honestly couldn't ask for a better weather for a beach trip. The moment you laid your eyes on the full view of the ocean, you stopped and stood there, mesmerized. It didn't matter that you grew up there. The sight always filled you with wonder. Hey, Joy.
So?
I was thinking about calling Terry and Miranda, see if they can come too. Everyone else is pretty much already here, so would your family mind? Wow, you had a good idea. Don't act so surprised, Joy. Just smacked myself on the headphones with a... Ow. He chuckled, his mouth pulled into a bent smile. It had to happen sometime. That had you laughing this time. You were already eager for your friends to join you there. Hey, Mom, Ma. They both stopped what they were doing and turned towards you. Immediately, you darted over to them. I have a question. Would it be alright if Terry and Miranda came by? I don't see why not. Ma looked to Mom to see what she thought, and she nodded in agreement. Mom then shot a glance over at Mr. Holden and Kyra, knowing that they had likely heard everything.
You alright with that?
Cliff, Kyra, what do you two think? The more the merrier.
Okay.
Of course, they're welcome with me. Why is Cliff, not in the shot anymore? Mr. Holden, you've been deleted. You're just a disembodied voice. Thanks. Delighted, you nodded and turned on your heels. Cove was still several feet away, talking to Lee and Liz, likely about the same topic. With a beaming smile, you gave him a thumbs up, and the two of them must have approved, as Cove quickly got his phone out and started making the calls. At that, you turned your attention to helping with the picnic setup. Unexpectedly, your phone started vibrating. You dug it out, curious to see the caller ID. Feeling your heart jump with excitement, you answered. It was Derek. He's not dead! I missed that little boy. Hey, this is a surprise. I thought you disappeared. Nope, I have not. And I hope it's at least a good surprise. A very good one. He chuckled at that and your smile widened. So what's up? The voice came through was much deeper than it had been when you first met, but it still had the exact same amount of enthusiasm of a kid. Have you been enjoying these crazy summer days? It's been memorable, to say the least. Sounds interesting. You'll have to catch me up on that. Well, what about you? How's your summer been? You were beyond curious to know what Derek had been up to since the last time you spoke. He chuckled, noticing your invested tone. Honestly, I've just been slammed with stuff lately. College applications and scholarship inquiries. What else is new? Your only real struggle will be choosing which place to go. They'll all be desperate to have you. Totally. He chuckled. His chuckle turned into a sigh. You could hear his small smile when he spoke. I really hope so anyway. That would be amazing. What about your family? Are your brothers being good? My little brothers are little punks, but I guess they're doing alright. You laughed at that. It was easy to imagine the grin on his face. Mom and Dad are fine. That's great. My moms are too. Turning your attention back to your surroundings, you smiled warmly at your family buzzing around. Towels were laid out and chairs and umbrellas were being set up. Actually... I'm out with my moms right now. Liz and Lee are here visiting too. Oh, that's fun, but if that's the deal, I'll let you get back to it. Are you sure? I don't mind. Uh-huh, I'm sure. I'm not about to lose your number. Okay, bye. Bye, Joy. Have a heck of a day. Aw. Hanging up, the conversation left you energized and in good spirits. It was exactly what you needed to make this day even better. You hurried over to your mom's and helped put the rest of the food out. In moments, you noticed Cove at your side. So what's the verdict on those invitations? They're gonna come. Yay! Yes! Excited, you raised your free hand for a high five. Cove laughed and slapped your hand.
Yeah.
They'll meet us here later today. Shouldn't be too long. I can't wait. Once the setup was done, everyone got comfortable and dug into the food. You couldn't remember the last time breakfast tasted this good, but you attributed it to the gorgeous ocean view and the soothing sea breeze. Breakfast on the beach doesn't sound that great in my mind, but I don't like sand. It's rough and coarse and irritating and gets everywhere. Anyway. I'm so sorry. Morning swiftly gave way to afternoon, and a very recognizable face came walking down the shore. Baxter seemed momentarily surprised to see you all there. He pleasantly approached with a wave. Oh yes! This would not be complete without my sexy voice boy coming back.
Hello, folks.
Eee! Leave me alone, I like his voice. Hello there. Hello there, I didn't mean to intrude on the party. I was coming down to get some fresh air. Oh, you didn't intrude on anything. You're welcome to join us. We brought plenty of towels and food and sunscreen. Yeah, you're one of the neighbors. Kick back and relax with us.
Thank you.
Well, I can't possibly say no to that. Thank you. Baxter's gaze moved over to you and Cove. He smiled. Joy, Cove. Long time no see. Hi. You waved from where you were leisurely sat, and Cove nodded. It was then that Baxter noticed the faces he didn't immediately recognize from around the neighborhood. He turned up his charm even more for the introductions.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I'm Baxter Ward. I'm sorry we haven't met before. Well, we're not typically from around this area, just visiting. I'm Cove's mom. A few giggles escaped Lee as she watched Baxter carefully. When his attention turned to her now, she held out a hand.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Lee, Joy's and Liz's cousin. Baxter shook it and then took a step back. Lee's smile grew. I'll remember that. It's very nice meeting you both. After that, Baxter spent some time getting better acquainted with everyone, and Terry and Miranda arrived excitedly. The conversation shifted to what you all would do next.
In that case,
We could do a few rounds of volleyball. There's plenty of us now.
is that all right?
Could I play? Of course. Miranda brightened, delighted with this plan. Ma looked around to see if there were any other takers. I don't feel like playing. I'd have to change, but it'd be fun to watch. I could be the ref. My eyes won't miss a thing. Volleyball's a good idea, but there should probably be something happening for those who aren't a fan. Oh, I have some crafting supplies we could use to make jewelry. We could even use stuff we find around the beach to accentuate them.
Really?
What? Really? I want to make a necklace.
That'd be great.
I'd be interested in trying my hand at that too.
Absolutely.
Impromptu crafting is my kind of party. I'd like to join it too, please. I am much more invested in the jewelry, personally. It has nothing to do with the fact that the sexy-faced husbando is going to be there. I'll make some jewelry. Already, you were imagining various designs you could make depending on what Lee let you use. Your cousin shot you a thumbs up, clearly happy with your decision. Guess I'll try to make a necklace too. Kyra got up from the towel she was sitting on. She brushed some sand off her legs and then stretched her arms over her head.
Can do.
I'm up for a few rounds. Well, since there's still a free spot, I'll throw my hat in the ring. The things I do for family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I'd love that. Liz got up from where she was sitting, and you could tell by her expression that she was already determined to win. You laughed to yourself, curious now how the game would turn out. Now that plans were settled, the group temporarily split in two.
Okay.
Let me pop back to the house to get my supplies. Anything we can do while you're gone? Yes, you can start clearing out the towels for us to work at. And if you want, look around for some good stuff to use.
I'm on it.
Roger that! While Lee ran back to the house, the group did just as she suggested. By the time she returned, everyone had their craft area ready to work at. Lee sat down on one of the towels and looked up at everyone eagerly. She held 2 necklace options. I hope you've all been thinking about what you want to make. I have for everyone a choice of either a chain or a thread rope. How do I pick? All I know is that I want to put some sea glass chunks on it. That's a charming idea. His gaze went back and forth between Lee's two necklace base options. You could tell he was thinking quite hard about it. I can't decide anything for mine. No rush. I'll leave the strands here, and you can decorate it however you want later. I suppose I'll use whatever I spot around the beach first. They can decide. I think I'll keep it classic and only worry about finding a decent shell.
Yeah.
I'm planning on doing seashells too. Let's just wing it. I'll wait and see. I don't have a plan. Baxter nodded, obviously able to relate to that mindset. Cove crossed his arms and chewed at the inside of his cheek. You weren't the only one that had noticed. What's wrong, Cove? I'm not sure what to use. I mean, ideally I want a shark tooth, but what are the chances I would even find one? Mom smiled. You both looked at him sympathetically.
Sorry.
The rare downside of not having a shark-filled coast. That would make for a really nice necklace, though.
I know.
At Cove's pouting, Mom gave him a little bump on the shoulder with her fist. Well, don't lose all hope. You never know. You might end up really lucky. Cove laughed. It cheered him up, even though it wasn't really convincing. After that, the little crafting club busily went to work on their pieces. Whatever they decided on using was attached in loops that were slid onto their necklace base. Terry was immensely proud of herself when she was done. Hers was simple, but gorgeous because of the striking piece of sea glass she painstakingly searched for and found. Baxter excitedly showed his finished piece off to everyone. He stayed true to his word and used various materials he found along the beach. The necklace looked like it had good weight from the clutter. He always had an eclectic style, as it seemed like. Cove ended up using driftwood of various lengths to design his necklace. Despite not finding any shark teeth, he still looked pretty pleased. Mom decided on a medium-sized purple ringed top shell as the center of hers, and Lee went with a few small Simnia shells? I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. They put both their necklaces on soon after finishing them. After combing the beach several times, you found just what you were looking for. It took a bit, but you managed to make a necklace you were satisfied with. It mostly had shells. Your group of crafters would also cheer for the volleyball players whenever the shouts could be heard coming out of the court. On top of that, you all would hold up each newly made piece in the air, and the players would take a breather to applaud the creation. You really enjoyed searching the beach, trading supplies, and watching everyone make their necklaces. The crafting club was definitely a success, and you weren't the only ones that had a blast. The afternoon continued to drift by, but the fun was still going strong. Occasionally, someone would head back to the houses to use the bathroom, rest away from the sun for a while, or to retrieve something that they needed, but they always came back. The beach was never empty, and there was always a new conversation to take part in, or another game to join. At one point, Mr. Holden even broke out his packs of cards. He roped the whole group into a few rounds of good old Go Fish. There was only one thing that could bring the beach day to an end, and that was for the day itself to end. Before anyone realized it, the sun began to set over the sea. As that happened, you were taking a break, sitting on a towel with your legs stretched out past it and your feet buried in the warm sand. Shortly, you looked up to see your moms approaching. They stopped in front of you and smiled. Hey there, kiddo.
How are you?
How are you doing? I'm doing great. Today's been amazing. They both sat down, squishing you between them. Ma leaned her head against yours, and Mom started rubbing your back soothingly. Nothing more was said at first, but Ma sighed contentedly. Ma looked at you wistfully. We're both really proud of you, Joy.
True.
You grew up to be more than we ever could have hoped. It's only thanks to you two. Ma wrapped an arm around your middle and squeezed you tightly in a side hug. Mom continued lightly scratching your back.
Thank you.
That means a lot, but I still think you're selling yourself short. You've always been a lovely person, and I'm so thrilled to know you. Your voice faltered, and you honestly couldn't imagine your life any other way. Ma lightly brushed some of your hair back and left a small kiss there. I'm so happy I got to have both of you as my moms. After that, all three of you were sitting there getting all sentimental. I don't know how we got so lucky with you and Liz. Ma reached out in front of you for Mom's hand. She gave it to her, and Ma squeezed it.
Of course.
Joy has a point. We must have done something right. You stayed there, quietly and contentedly, watching the sunset with your parents for a while. Until Mr. Holden called out to you, he was still walking in your direction. We were talking and think we're gonna take a walk down the shore. And if you want to come? Automatically, you looked to your moms for what they were thinking. Mom glanced from you to Ma and smiled. That sounds good to me.
That's fantastic.
Yes, that'd be very nice. My legs need some stretching. That's a yes across the board. Thrilled, Mr. Holden threw a thumbs up and began heading back the way he came in a light jog. Hey, don't leave us in the dust. Cliff kept going forward, but flipped around, walking backwards across the sand so he could face you again.
No worries.
Don't worry, we wouldn't leave without you. Alright, we'll catch up. Ready to go? Uh-huh. Both of your moms held a hand out to you. Chuckling, you gave them each one, and you all strolled back to the rest of the group. When Liz was in reach, Ma used her free hand to pull her into it. Liz shook her head, but her mouth quirked into a smirk, and she didn't resist. Together as a family, you followed behind the others, hand in hand. Your feet squished into the wet sand as the waves rolled over them, and you didn't have a single care in the world as more and more stars began to dot the sky. Once the sun had long been out of sight, it was finally time to pack up. The closing of the day and the ever-approaching end of summer seemed to intertwine. It caused a quiet, reflective mood to blanket over the group. On the beach, Terry and Miranda took turns compressing Cove in a hug before moving on to do the same to you. You chuckled, still overjoyed that you got to see them today. I'm sorry we have to go already. My parents are here. That's okay. But still, I wish we could clear this up. Don't worry about it. Just thanks for coming out today. It was cool having everyone here.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm super glad we came. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Nodding, you turned your attention to Terry. She wore a large grin on her face and held a hand out for a loaf of 5. You obliged.
See you later.
Take care of yourself, buddies. After that, they walked away, giving you and Cove as they went down the shore. Cove waved quietly back with a small smile on his face. Have a safe trip back! We will! Bye! Taking you by surprise, Terry jumped and twisted around. She kept up with Miranda by walking backwards. She kept the mood of your farewell light by shooting finger guns at you and Cove. Miranda bumped her with a hip, and left everyone with a laugh just before they disappeared down the bend. Joy?
Come on.
Hey Cove, could you come here? Both of your parents were motioning for you. The two of you went to them. Tons of things ended up at the beach over the course of the day, so there was still so much to pack up, and the parents needed help. With a nod, you got to it, stuffing various things into bags and bundling them up in towels. Once things were ready to go, everyone filled their arms with as much as they could carry. Absolutely no one wanted this to be a back-and-forth kind of task. The walk back home ended up being mostly quiet. Each person seemed to be feeling the effects of the day. A cold breeze carried you across the sand and into the road. There was a sigh of relief from what felt like the group as a whole when they arrived back into the neighborhood. Baxter carefully placed what he had been carrying on the ground. Thank you so much for helping with that.
Thanks.
No, thank you for allowing me to join today. Y'all shared with me. Helping carry it back is the least I can do. Ma nodded, and the others started collecting their things from his pile. Baxter, meanwhile, stepped over to you and Cove. It really was a pleasure getting to know you both this summer. His head tilted towards you, and he smiled warmly. Baxter offered you his hand. You used your freer hand to shake his. It was tough with what you were carrying, but you were able to extend one of your hands a bit. Baxter chuckled and shook it. I think we really did end up as good friends.
Glad to hear it.
I wholeheartedly agree, Joy. I enjoyed this vacation immensely, thanks to you. Baxter turned to shake Cove's hand this time. He was a little incredulous for a moment, but then Cove eventually shifted what he was carrying and took Baxter's hand. It wasn't long, but it was a solid handshake. Baxter was clearly pleased. I wish we had more time together, but it was still a nice ride while it lasted. Would happily do it all over again. Bye, Baxter. Yeah, bye. Baxter nodded and walked a few steps towards his condo. He then stopped and waved.
Goodbye.
Eek! Baxter sauntered away completely and disappeared inside the condo to return to his own things, his time with you and your family and friends ending. You paused for a moment, staring at where he went. But afterwards, you looked back over at the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were just going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kyra or Mr. Holden anywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Mom approached you with an amused look on her face. Seems like you're holding up some Holden things. That's bad. Surprised, you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right. Some of it belonged to the neighbors. Would you mind dropping it off now? Looking down again at everything you were carrying, you sighed. A teasing grin played across your lips. The Holdens is a long walk from here. Cove snorted and laughed next to you, making your grin widen. Mom chuckled and shook her head. You can hack it, and then you'll get to experience the joy of a job well done. You laughed happily and nodded. Mom smiled fondly. Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped, waiting for you.
Good night.
Good night, Cove. I'll see you inside, Joy. Night. You caught up to Cove, and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kyra and Mr. Holden busily unpacking it already. Things were scattered on counters, and they were moving around each other, putting the items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door. Hey. It's nice seeing you again already, Joy. Her teasing tone brought a smile to your face. You hefted the stuff in your arms a little closer. I ended up with things of yours from the beach.
Oh.
Oh, thanks for getting that to us. You can put it, here on that coffee table. Mr. Holden pointed at the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what didn't belong to your family there. Cove put his own things down on the floor, just at his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You needed a second of rest and a minute to re-situate it all. You went over to where the others were too. Kyra opened her arms wide, wanting to hug you. You accepted. Without any hesitation, you went to Kyra and let her pull you into a hug. You squeezed her back just as tight. Her hug was filled with affection, and you hoped that she could feel how much you cared about her too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. You're welcome. Today was amazing. Kyra eventually released you, but patted the tops of your shoulders as a final gesture.
Thank you.
Every time I've gotten to come by, it's been an absolute joy. Things really couldn't have worked out better. Mr. Holden took a step closer to you. Kyra moved aside to let him say goodbye too. He grinned. Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor, and not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. I didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I really truly appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again, Joy. So much. At that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. You hugged him. You burst forward into Mr. Holden and wrapped your arms around him. Surprised, he went rigid immediately. But several moments later, he relaxed and began to lightly pat your back before shifting into a full hug. You squeezed him tighter. Thanks for moving in. As you let go, he sniffled, but when he met your gaze once more, his mouth pulled into a wide, happy grin. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back at who you used to be, the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend.
See you.
Bye, Joy. You smiled softly. Then Cove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had carried into the house.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about all that. I'll put the stuff away in a few minutes. Right, I need to go do the same with my family. I figured. Cove walked you to the door and held it open. Taking one last check around to make sure that you had all your things to bring home, you went into the road. He leaned his body against the doorframe, not following you out. So this is it, huh? Actually, that's not what I mean. His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit, like he was trying to banish the pensive thoughts.
Bye.
I'll just say bye. Yeah, bye. It won't be long before you'll see me again. You offered him a small wave goodbye with one of your hands. Cove reached forward and gently cupped your face with one hand. His thumb trailed across your cheek for several heartbeats. Mesmerized by his blue eyes, you stepped forward, delighted to oblige the request he was silently asking. He met you halfway, and you smiled into the kiss. It was soft with longing, and your chest ached knowing that there couldn't be anything more than this, at least for now. Once his hands grabbed onto the door handle and firmly held it, he was stopping himself from coming along with you. As you walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him. You laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. You blew him a kiss. Cove reached out like he was catching it off the side, and then curled his fist to his chest, holding the kiss close. Your lips curled into a beaming smile. I hope you'll treasure that. Maybe. Things couldn't be dragged out any longer. After one more shared smile, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered in the living room. They were still busy unpacking and cleaning. You added the things you brought to the pile on the kitchen counter. Mom stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit. She yawned loudly. I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow? Yes, honestly, it's too late for this.
Thanks.
Please and thank you. Ma put her hands on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not one who liked to leave a mess about, but she sighed.
All right.
I suppose we can make an exception to the usual rule. It's been a really long day. Liz grinned contentedly. Lee wasted no time skipping over to you and hooked you into a side hug. Good night. I hope you have the loveliest of dreams. Of you-know-who. Lee ended that sentence with a wink and a hearty laugh. She let you go. You hugged her back. You pulled her close and into a bear hug. Lee giggled until you released her. I hope you sleep well too. Oh, I totally will. The moment my head hits the pillow, I'll be out. Here's to us, Joy. Tonight, tomorrow, and forever. Yeah, family forever. Lee leaned in close to whisper in your ear. You didn't fail to catch the teasing look on her face.
Aww.
Exactly. There's no escape. That got a laugh out of you. You lightly pushed her shoulder. Lee stretched her arms high over her head. She yawned loudly and looked at you with tired eyes. I think that's my cue to go to bed. Bye. I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz. She laughed at that, and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. Night-night. I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day, and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. Everything okay? Her gaze moved away, and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for Liz to compose her thoughts. It's been a good summer. It was nice to come back home. You nodded, and Liz gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. Love you, little kiddo. I love you too. Liz stopped walking and stared at you for a moment. She smiled softly at you. Get some sleep soon. Morning will be here faster than you know it. I will. When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. Aren't you heading up to bed too? I want to relax first. Desperately, you needed some time to decompress and clear your mind. You worried if you went off to bed now that you would just end up staring at the ceiling all night. Okay. Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug.
Love you.
Alright, you do what you need to. I love you. When you were done hugging Mom pulled you into another hug. Your actions basically handing you off to the other had you laughing jovially.
I love you.
I love you so much. I love you too. Aww. They both couldn't resist taking turns hugging you again. Your smile widened. It felt good to be so loved. Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight. Good night, sweetie. Night. After that, your moms headed off towards their bedroom down the hall. You were able to turn the other direction when you heard Mom's voice. And don't let the bugs bite. You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. Time had passed, but you weren't entirely sure how much. Sighing, you sat up on the couch. It was a good rest, and all of your tired muscles felt quite relaxed. You got up, planning to go to bed, when something out the window caught your eye. Your feet brought you right in front of the large windows spanning the length of the back wall. You stared out into the hills behind your house. God damn it, Cove! As if on cue, your phone came on, alerting you of a new notification. It was Cove. Want to hang out on the hill tonight? Something inside you told you that this was the right kind of night to take a trip out there. You sent him back a very quick message. Yeah. Aww. You went over to the front door, and stepping over the threshold, you gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way to the poppy hill. With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hills behind your house. Up ahead at the very top, silhouetted beneath the night sky, was a familiar figure already waiting there. Smiling, you wondered just how he always got there first. You had the advantage of living closer. Then again, and maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow, Cove was intrinsically linked with this place. After all these years, it would be weird to scan this horizon and not find him there, as surreal as the shore without the sea. The distance between you was growing shorter by the second. Hearing the grass and earth crunch under your feet, Cove turned. A grin spread over his face as he saw you. You took your place standing beside him on the crest of the poppy hill, looking out over the ocean. Same as you'd done on countless times since he'd first arrived, when you found him on this very same spot.
Joy.
He had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place. You looked at him expectantly. There's something I've always kind of wondered about. He cocked his head, giving you a sidelong glance. What did you think about when we met? I was just a kid, and you never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house. He chuckled, his eyes drifting towards the sea beyond, before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back to you made it clear that he was genuinely invested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remembered what initially struck you in that moment. It was as if it had only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing the neon pink cast you had to wear that summer. Cove burst into a genuine laughter at your reply. I guess that's fair. It did kind of stand out. Sighing a bit, you continued to reminisce about the first meeting. I also remember feeling bad about what was happening. I remember that too. He ran a hand through his hair, and you knew his line of questioning wasn't at an end, even before he spoke again.
I mean...
Do you remember what you thought about me? You know, as a person? Was I annoying or mean or... I was just worried about you because you were so sad. His eyes widened dolefully, and he hung his head like a guilty puppy.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for upsetting you. Cove's hand drifted to the scar on his arms, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off, shrunken gradually over the years as his body healed, then dwarfed in comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. He gave a half smile, not meeting your eyes. I feel bad now. The thoughts I had were... Well, considering what you were thinking, I came across a lot worse of a kid. You didn't like me?
No.
No, it definitely wasn't that. Cove lifted his head up, finally committing to meet your eyes fully once more. I remember you that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'd ever be able to forget. I can picture the way you looked back then when I first saw you standing right here. I still know the expression on your face when you chose to sit with me in the grass. He chuckled self-derisively, interrupting his own monologue. You scared me at first. I figured I'd be alone out here until I had to face my dad again, and then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place, but in that moment you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening and how it made me feel. And you listened to me. You stayed with me. He sighed, then bit his lip as he gave a small smile. I was a little bit spoiled growing up. It wasn't that bad. You were dealing with a lot. Cove tilted his head to the side, smiling softly at your defense of his smaller self. He looked off again, seeking clarity for his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky. What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that. That is every kid everywhere, Cove. I hate to break it to you. Children are pretty much all pretty damn selfish. You have to acquire a certain level of maturity before you start to realize that maybe, just maybe, it ain't all about you.
I mean...
Things didn't simply happen. That would be weird according to my little kid brain. It made far more sense that everything in my life had specific connections to me, somehow, right? He sought affirmation in you, wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike logic. So at the time, you felt almost unreal. Like you weren't just anyone, some other kid who happened to live in that neighborhood with your own whole life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. No, to me, you were there so that you could find me when I was lost. Though, it turns out you were there for that. You were trying to find me because something had sent you specifically to do that. I just didn't expect it to be my dad. I guess he knew more about what I needed than I thought. He chuckled, shaking his head as he shook off the thought. I kind of expected it all to vanish like a dream when that night was over. I would wake up and everything would be the same again. I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home, with both my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like when I went back, or the table where I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. And if I couldn't imagine it, how could I think it was something actually happening? If I couldn't grasp my new reality, it was too big for me to hold all at once. So I never thought I'd see you again. Then Cove beamed at you, his eyes shining bright. And I never ever would have been able to guess that 10 years later, when I was a grown-up, the two of us would still be together. Guess that makes me your dream come true. You'd been joking, but Cove nodded in agreement. You are. You exactly are. But the smile faded from his face as his eyebrows drew together. That was the worst day of my life at the time. The day my family broke apart. It was too heavy for me to even think about. I felt that way for I don't know how long. He held a hand over his heart, connecting with the pain he'd felt as a child, and looked at you earnestly.
It's okay.
But that was never really true. Things have only gotten better with me, and with Dad and Mom. It was the change we all needed. His eyes were growing misty. So, when I remember that time right now, it's not the point that my life was over. It was only the moment that I met the person I love. Aww. When I was crying to a stranger over what I thought I'd lost, I didn't have any idea that they would be the one thing that in the world that I actually wouldn't be able to live without. I love you. He took in a breath, forever amazed whenever you spoke those words.
I love you.
I love you too, Joy. Then you kissed him. He leaned into the kiss, his lips soft against yours. Cove sighed contentedly. His voice was delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned the hills. Hey, Joy. I'm so grateful you always took care of me. You didn't even know what to say to that. His heartfelt appreciation left you speechless. He tilted his head up, thoughts lost in the sparse clouds above. I wonder how late it is. I guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever. You could just use your phone to check the time.
I know.
Sure I could, but I'm probably not gonna. Are you gonna lay in the grass now? Wow, how'd you know? This boy. You're predictable. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down on the ground and laid on his back. His usual way of spending time here. I feel like this is way too much for this outing still. I'm very curious, but I'm not going to click it. You laid down and snuggled against him. You lowered yourself against Cove's side in the grass and wrapped an arm over his chest. Cove smiled at you and used his free hand to cradle your face. The both of you fully settled in to relax on the hill. It felt just the beginning of one of your nightly outings, but then you realized the sun was peeking over the horizon. Hot damn, we've been out a while! Cove spoke up with a disbelieving tone.
Huh.
It really was late. Your neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn. However, not like this. He was normally an early sleeper or early riser. Same. This unexpected sunrise particularly awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. Cove then propped himself up on the backs of his arms and looked at you with a soft expression on his face. Do you want to go back home? I could carry you if you're too tired. Aww. No, I want to stay here. You couldn't resist a yawn, but you were serious. It couldn't be time to go already. Cove chuckled affectionately and gripped you a little more.
I get it.
Okay, but it's been a long day. We've done a lot of things. Like, really a lot. It has to end sometime. Does it really have to end? Yeah, I don't think there's anything either of us can do about that one. But we can stay if you want to. Cove smiled brightly at you, as warm as the new rays of the sun that were tickling your skin. In that moment, you couldn't have appreciated him being there more. You kissed him. You moved your face forward and gave Cove a small kiss. He tilted his head against yours. I just love you so much. Despite this being the second time you'd said it this excursion, Cove was newly thrilled once more. Joy, I love you. The two of you remained together on that familiar poppy hill where you first met until the world began to fade and blur. You were falling asleep. A few more gentle words drifted into your consciousness.
See you tomorrow.
Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were safe and relaxed. Everything that had come before this had reassured you of that. You were confident that when you opened them again, things would be okay. You opened your eyes. Instead of the walls of your room, you were surrounded by open sky. It was not soft pillows and sheets underneath you, but the bed of earth and grass that you'd taken last night. The day welcomed you with a shining sun, a refreshing breeze, and the chirping song of birds. You cupped your face with your hands as you sat up, feeling the imprint of the blades of grass leaving lines on your cheek.
Joy.
Hearing your name, you lowered your hands and looked around. There he was, your most influential neighbor, Cove Holton. Ah, he's so cute! I'm sorry. He had made himself very comfortable laying on his stomach with jewelry and shoes taken off and a flower in his hand. Good morning. Lord, boy. I'm fine. He's just very cute. It's not really the morning anymore. Cove laughed, tickled with the overall situation and simply being able to spend time like this. Told you I'd see you tomorrow. It's exactly the same day, Cove. We were up until dawn. It doesn't make it a new day just because we went to sleep later than normal. Then we disagree, because to me, it's not really the next day until I've been to bed and woken up. I like that mindset. You're wrong, but I like that mindset. But fine, I'll just have to make sure I see you tomorrow again. Probably the day after that, too. That way there's no argument. Cove turned his head up to the sky, his expression content. Looks like it's gonna be a nice day. We'll have to come up with something to do to make the most of it. He trailed off, blinking slowly in the sunlight. Someday, when we're even older than we are now, I wonder what we'll end up remembering this moment for. What will we feel when we look back at it? Will it be the same as what we're feeling right now?
It's nice.
I can't see what the future is gonna look like again, but I think that's alright. I think it'll mark another new start for me. Cove's eyebrows lifted as he turned to look at you. That's a good one. I want to think about it like that too. He eyed the hill sprawling out before you and down below where the wild hill and nature gave way to civilization. Your home and coves lay down at the bottom, neatly filled among the other houses in the neighborhood. Cove said nothing but fixed you with a deliberate and meaningful look. As much as I like it here, it's okay if we leave now. We can always come back to see the poppies and fireflies again, right? Cove met your eyes, waiting for what you were going to say in response. We'll always be together in one way or another. He didn't know where that came from, but Cove blinked slowly, his eyes still locked on you. Though you didn't need to see his face to know that he adored you. If there had been any room for doubt, the tender way he spoke would have filled it up. You're one of a kind, huh? Cove beamed at you. His expression was so unlike the one he'd worn when you first found him here, swaddled in sadness and uncertainty. Yet you couldn't help but glimpse that boy once more underneath his bright expression and matured features.
Come on.
He offered you a hand. You accepted it, your palm fitting around his. Cove lifted himself up, pulling you along too. Our parents probably aren't going to come running for us this time. We've got to make our own call. And I say that we can't hide away forever. Poppy Hills is just one part of things. There's more out there for us than this time and this place alone. Let's enjoy it. You couldn't say whether you were the one that broke into your run, if Cove had been the one to start it, or if your feet had simultaneously made that choice for you both. The end result was the same, the two of you dashing down the hill like children, but with a nostalgic revelry that could only come as an adult. As the wind whipped past you, you knew that family and friends were waiting at the end of your sprint. There are more memories to make, after all. Life takes another step forward. And we're at the end. I love this so much. Let's just say, in the realm of visual novels, you don't often get to see stories this, I guess, open for the player. Like, usually you have a character that the designers have already, you know, set in stone. But like, I've enjoyed this so much. I've enjoyed getting to know Joy. I've enjoyed getting to know Cove. I've enjoyed meeting all the characters that have visited Sunset Bird. Like, I feel like these are real people. And I feel like these are real interactions that I've had with them. And it's just really impressive. My heart hurts because I know it's over now. But it's not over forever. Gotta remind myself of that. We're coming back to this. I'm gonna unlock all of the DLC. And we're gonna do another playthrough. But that's not gonna happen until I've done at least 2 or 3 other games in the interim, because I don't want my channel to be completely overtaken with just this one game. I have so many games on my to-play list. So many. It's really bad. It's taking up so much space on my hard drive, and I kind of just want to get some of it gone. I kind of want to keep talking just so that the entirety of the credits will end up in the final video. And this one's gonna be a bumper video, I think, just quite a bit longer than normal, so that you guys can sort of experience all of this in one go like I did. I really like this end music too. That's the other thing, like the attention to detail in this. There's so many teeny tiny little details that for the most part I imagine people would never notice that they weren't there. But because they took the time to like add those details in, it just makes it feel a little bit deeper, a little bit more real. And I just I'm just gonna keep gushing about this game. I love this game. Oh, and before I forget, there is actually another game that the same dev team is coming out with. I'm not too sure when the full game will be released because I have not been keeping as close of tabs on it as I should have been. But it's going to be called Forever and Always, I think. Our Life Forever and Always, if I'm remembering correctly. But I will see if there's... Nani? There's a step 4 epilogue? What? What? Hold the fucking phone. What? Alright. So, there was more going on than I realized. Shit. Alright, so the next time I play this game will be after the epilogue comes out, I think. Because I want more. I want more. I just want more. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being with me through this whole journey. It means the world to me that I can share a game like this with so many people. And I hope that you will be back again for whatever I end up playing next. Be with me on this journey. Yeah.